Buenos días, soy Eva Bajameida, periodista, redactora de RTV Noticias y vocal de Reporteros Sin Fronteras España. En primer lugar, quisiera agradecer a la Coordinadora de Organizaciones para el Desarrollo por invitarme, por darme esa oportunidad de presentar este evento, una cita necesaria para poder escuchar propuestas, para tejer redes y, sobre todo, poner el foco sobre los valores que deben regir para construir una Europa más responsable con el mundo. Damos la bienvenida y agradecemos a todas las instituciones representadas en este acto. Su presencia hoy aquí tiene un alto valor porque no debemos olvidar que para garantizar, si algo garantiza la calidad democrática, es el diálogo entre instituciones y quienes las ocupan y la ciudadanía. Gracias también a todas y a todos los que nos acompañan hoy aquí en la sala, pero también a quienes nos están siguiendo por streaming. Y, por supuesto, agradecer al Círculo de Bellas Artes su acogida, por acogernos hoy aquí para escuchar esa presentación de las propuestas de la Coordinadora de Organizaciones para el Desarrollo de cara a la próxima presidencia española del Consejo de la Unión Europea. Y vamos a dar comienzo al acto con la intervención de doña Pilar Cancela. Ella es secretaria de Estado de Cooperación Internacional. Bienvenida, Pilar.
Secretary General for the European Union.
Pues muy buenos días. Muy buenos días a
Good morning.
todos y a todas.
Good morning,
Un
all.
gusto estar aquí en este
It's a
centro
pleasure
maravilloso de
being
Bellas
here in
Artes.
this
Un
beautiful
gustazo estar de
Centro de
nuevo.
Bellas Artes. It's a
Siempre
pleasure
es
being here
grato
again.
por la acogida, por lo que
I'm always
significa
thankful
también, lo
for,
comentábamos ahora, que también
this thing we were
tiene una implicación
talking
muy
about
directa
now.
con
The
las
implication is
instituciones
really
europeas, con la Unión
direct with the
Europea.
European
Así que vais a tener mucho
institutions, with the
trabajo
European Union.
a
So we're
partir
going
de
to have a
julio
lot
para
of
poder
work
acoger pues, los
from
puntos de
July
encuentro que se
on.
realicen aquí en relación con nuestra presidencia. Bueno,
Related,
en primer
your
lugar,
presidency.
saludar a Irene, querida
First,
presidenta,
I want
muchísimas
to
gracias por
say
invitarme
hello
a
to
compartir
Irene. Thank you so much to
este acto tan
invite me
bonito y sobre todo la
share this
oportunidad
event, this
de
beautiful event,
conocer cuáles
and
son las
share
propuestas que tiene
the
planteadas la
proposals
coordinadora en relación con nuestra presidencia.
the Spanish
Saludar al director de la agencia, pero aún no ha llegado, pero lo saludo igual, así después cuando llegue pues se lo decís. Querida secretaria general, querida María, un gustazo también compartir contigo espacio. Un saludo muy especial a todos los ponentes que van a formar parte y las ponentes de la mesa a continuación y, por supuesto, en general, amigos y amigas. Siempre es un gusto juntarnos para hablar de desarrollo, para hablar de cooperación. Creo que es un momento muy relevante para nuestro país. Es un momento muy relevante para la cooperación española. Creo que hemos vivido un año y pico tremendamente intenso, pero también muy productivo. Y muy productivo, y yo aquí quiero destacar fundamentalmente una herramienta o una manera que hemos tenido de construir, que es lo que me parece más importante, y es el diálogo. Creo que las políticas, cuando se desarrollan, y en el caso de la cooperación internacional, puede ser de otra manera, el diálogo y la interacción permanente entre las instituciones, la parte más institucional, en este caso el Ministerio, con toda la representación de la sociedad civil, por supuesto con más entidades y con más representación de actores de la cooperación española, que afortunadamente es muy rica, es muy variada, y es una de las notas caracterizadoras y definidoras de nuestra cooperación, la multiplicidad de actores. Pero yo quiero agradecer de una manera especial a la coordinadora por la empatía, por la capacidad de acercar posturas. Eso no está en absoluto reñido con la disparidad de posiciones o con la presión permanente que ha hecho el sector y con sus propuestas, pero no hubiera salido todo tan consistente y tan sólido si no hubiera sido también por esa fortaleza y por esa capacidad de escucharnos mutuamente. Y creo que ese es el gran valor que tiene la reforma que hemos empezado de la cooperación española y que esperemos que sea una reforma también que, al tener esa base tan sólida, perviva durante bastantes años en nuestro país. Siempre decimos que la cooperación española, la cooperación al desarrollo es una parte esencial de la política exterior de nuestro país, de la acción exterior, es verdad. Decimos que es una política pública, es verdad. Que hacemos una cooperación feminista, es verdad. O sea, todo lo que decimos es cierto. Y también es verdad que refleja a los valores de nuestra sociedad, de los ciudadanos y de las ciudadanas de este país. Creo que no hay ningún ciudadano, ciudadana o muy pocos que pongan en cuestión el trabajo que se está haciendo en el ámbito de la cooperación internacional al desarrollo. Somos un país tremendamente solidario, un país que lo demuestra además cada vez que tiene que responder, que tiene que acompañar alguna de las situaciones de emergencia internacional, de ayuda humanitaria, pero también cómo somos cuando hacemos cooperación, y nadie mejor que vosotros y que vosotras, quienes formáis parte de esa amplia red de personas cooperantes por el mundo adelante, en representación de España, los que definen a un país que es su señal de identidad en el mundo. La cooperación española está valorada muy positivamente. Yo siempre digo esta frase, a pesar de que no somos la cooperación o el sistema de cooperación que más recursos económicos tenemos, los tendremos, para eso estamos haciendo una reforma, pero sí es verdad que hay unos valores que nos diferencian, y es sobre todo la empatía, el diálogo y cómo construimos todos nuestros planes de cooperación al desarrollo. ¿Cómo lo hacemos? Dialogando con los países socios con quienes trabajamos. Por eso permanece nuestra cooperación. Por eso tenemos también un sistema tan arraigado en los continentes donde estamos. Y quiero hacer una referencia especial a América Latina y el Caribe, por supuesto a África, pero América Latina y el Caribe para nosotros, bueno, tiene como una implicación mucho más de valores que compartimos, de camino, el idioma que nos une, pero bueno, una historia sobre todo donde nuestra cooperación además empezó allí, empezó en América Latina, en Centroamérica, y ese también es un valor que queremos poner ahora encima de la mesa como prioritario de nuestra presidencia, porque hoy también fundamentalmente venimos a hablar de nuestra presidencia. Hay cuestiones que forman parte de los objetivos fundamentales. Está claro que la Agenda 2030 es nuestra hoja de ruta, es la consecución de los objetivos de desarrollo, pero yo diría que hay un objetivo de desarrollo que es el fundamental y es el que sustenta todo. La pobreza y las desigualdades. Esa es fundamentalmente nuestra razón de ser y ese es nuestro objetivo fundamental. Y a veces no podemos confundirnos ante nuevos retos que van surgiendo, porque el mundo va a una velocidad de vértigo. Lo acabamos de ver ahora con la guerra, con la invasión de Ucrania por parte de Rusia, donde ha tenido un impacto brutal, no solamente como consecuencias económicas, sino también ha tenido un impacto en la vida del ciudadano y de la ciudadana todos los días. Cuando íbamos al supermercado a comprar una botella de aceite y no había, cuando vas a llenar el depósito de gasolina o de gasoil y suben los precios, cuando la luz se dispara, hay determinadas circunstancias que nos demuestran que somos más interdependientes que nunca, y eso necesita una mayor solidaridad y trabajar mucho más juntos, y el ámbito multilateral en ese sentido cada vez es mucho más importante. Por tanto, combatir la desigualdad y la pobreza y seguir haciendo, dando respuesta a los nuevos retos que surgen. La seguridad alimentaria o la inseguridad alimentaria es uno de ellos, el cambio climático es una evidencia, y por supuesto una de nuestras señales de identidad que lo dije antes, que es la perspectiva de género. Para nosotros la igualdad de las mujeres y de las niñas, la lucha contra todas las violencias contra las mujeres es una de nuestras prioridades, y creo que también se nos define de esta manera. Por tanto, el año pasado, el año 2022, tuvimos el año de la ley. Trabajamos la nueva ley de desarrollo sostenible y la solidaridad global, pero es el primer paso fundamental, es el paraguas fundamental, porque es el marco legislativo que nos permite desarrollar después todo lo demás, pero nos falta aún el complementar y el afianzar ese marco legislativo. Tenemos aún 4 reales decretos por sacar adelante, nos toca también el nuevo plan director de la cooperación española para los próximos años, y nos toca también una reforma muy en profundidad de nuestra agencia de cooperación. Ya la ha tenido con un respaldo presupuestario que ha duplicado el mismo solamente en un año. Cuando este equipo llegó al
when
ministerio,
this team got to the
sabéis que hay un compromiso en la
ministry,
ley de alcanzar el
we have this
0,7%.
compromise
Claro que
in
lo
the
sabéis, que lo
law
hemos negociado, lo hemos hablado
to reach
entre
this
nosotros y nosotras.
0.7, and of course,
Con
because
esa
we've talked
perspectiva
about it,
del
but
año
with this
2030, que
perspective
parecía
of
tan
the
lejos
year
que no
2030
está
that
tan
looks
lejos,
so
está a la vuelta
far,
de la
but it's
esquina,
really not that
cuando
far.
nos
It's around
incorporamos,
the corner.
el
When
presupuesto
we
representaba
talked
más o
about the
menos un
budget, it represented
0,24%, un 0,23% de la
0.24%,
renta nacional bruta
0.23%
destinada a ODE.
of the national
Ahora mismo estamos en un
taxation. Now
0,34%,
we are at
solamente en un año.
0.34
Por tanto, lo
just in a
importante es
year.
que
So
podamos
the
mantener en
important
los
thing is that we
próximos
can
años esa
keep
tendencia
this
de
tendency in the
incremento
incoming
y que
years,
podamos
this
conseguir esa
increase,
meta del
and that we can reach
0,7%.
this goal
Evidentemente,
of
esa meta hay que conseguirla no
0.7%. I mean, this
solamente
goal we have
con lo
to
que se refleje
reach
en los presupuestos
just
generales del
not
Estado,
just with the
sino que
budgets in
necesitamos
the
también herramientas
of the
financieras, recursos
general budgets of the
financieros
state,
para
but
poder
also
hacerlo. Por tanto,
the finance to
seguimos
be able to
trabajando
do that. So
en
we
este nuevo
keep
sistema o
working
modelo
in
de
this
la
new
cooperación
system or
española que
model
tantos años
of
llevabais
Spanish
reivindicando y que
cooperation
por fin
that we had
hemos
been
sido capaces de darle
vindicating for so
forma,
long, and
pero
finally it's
también nos hemos
taking
dado
shape.
cuenta de la
We have
importancia,
also
ya lo
noticed
sabíamos,
the
pero también de
importance
la importancia de que reforcemos muchísimo la ayuda
to
humanitaria. Creo que los grandes retos que se nos
enforce
presentan exigen una ayuda humanitaria
humanitarian help.
con el
This is
triple nexo
something
como ADN ya
we need to have
incorporado
the
a la
triple
acción
axis as DNA
cotidiana,
for this
debe ser algo
everyday
normalizado
life.
y
It needs
ese
to
es
be
nuestro
something
planteamiento,
that's
así figura
normalized,
también en la
and
ley.
this is
Y también
something that
hay que
needs to be
reflejar,
reflected in
cuando
the law
hablaba antes
as
de lo que
well.
es España y cómo se
And
define en el mundo, no puedo
also,
dejar de mencionar la donación de
need to
vacunas.
be able to
Cuando fue la
mention, of
pandemia de
course,
la COVID,
the
donde
vaccines.
España
When we
llegó
had the
a donar 60 millones
COVID,
de vacunas. Somos el séptimo país en el mundo
we were
en cuanto
the
al número de
seventh
donaciones, el segundo en América Latina, solamente después de Estados Unidos. Por tanto, eso también nos ha llevado a otra conclusión tremendamente importante, y es la necesidad de reforzar los sistemas sanitarios, los sistemas de salud, sobre todo los de atención primaria, porque está claro que aquellos países que tenían unos sistemas de salud más fuertes pues respondieron mucho mejor a la situación que vino derivada de la pandemia. Por tanto, en esta presidencia sabemos que hay que seguir respondiendo a los grandes retos de siempre.
to respond to all the goals. Somebody talks about traditional cooperation, somebody talks about new goals.
Porque además está claro que
Also, I mean, it's pretty clear that the climatic crisis is here to stay. Also, the food insecurity also has an indirect impact in human mobility. I want to call it human mobility. It is a bigger and bigger reality, and of course, massive.
No nos podemos olvidar, valga la redundancia, tampoco de las crisis olvidadas. Esa debe ser también nuestra mirada, porque al final estamos viviendo una superposición de crisis. No vaya a ser que lo inmediato nos haga olvidar lo que lleva persistiendo en el tiempo y que además muchas de ellas están de una manera ya como muy enconadas, ¿no? Como demasiado enquistadas, y no podemos mirar hacia otro lado. Es una de las cuestiones que también plantearemos en nuestra presidencia. Por tanto, a todos estos retos, yo diría, de cambios económicos, de retos sociales, medioambientales, también geopolíticos, la presidencia española del Consejo para el Desarrollo, desde el punto de vista del desarrollo, pretendemos focalizarnos sobre todo en tres grandes temas que no se agotan ahí, porque evidentemente la mirada es transversal. Yo hablaría en primer lugar, como respuesta a la pandemia se planteó el equipo Europa, el Team Europe, que es una herramienta que ha sido efectiva, que ha dado resultados, pero creemos que también es el momento de analizar el impacto que tiene y cómo podemos también corregir aquellas cuestiones que debamos corregir en cuanto al Team Europe. Creo que Europa acertó en ese posicionamiento de suma para desarrollar grandes proyectos con un respaldo muy amplio de la mayoría de los países miembros de la Unión Europea, y sobre todo porque estamos trasladando a través de los Team Europe aquello que nos
trying to establish what identifies us in Europe. Europe is known is identified by its innate values that it has, and one of them is the social cohesion and perspective. So it's the soul of Europe, because only like this we will be able to occupy, and we have to occupy in the socio-political space, and more values that are completely different that other geopolitical blocs are proposing. So this presidency is going to be very important to resituate us and catapult us in the world with this perspective. We also think it's really important the transition. We have always defended that for being a country that receives OD, it is not enough to just consider economic numbers.
Que hace la OCDE no puede ser la renta, el indicador.
It cannot just be the rent, the only indication of the some countries that have. I'm sorry, I'm having difficulties with the sound. Sorry. This is a debate that we are going to put on the table, and that corresponds with this new law of development cooperation that we have established. So this is also a challenge for Spanish cooperation to keep working with the countries that are not receiving help for development. In third place, and it's not last place just because it's least important, but the contrary, it's the gender perspective, the equality perspective. This is the soul of our cooperation. It's transversal, it's intersectional, absolutely, and this is one of our seals of identity. Discrimination amongst women, for women, against women is awful. And when we talk about transition, this triple transition, it's not going to be fair if the social side of it, it's not reinforced, and if more than 50%, and that's women and girls, we don't have this empowerment, because otherwise nothing is going to be fair and social cohesion won't exist. So this will be the fundamental pillar of our programs and of our work, because it's been the way for the past years. So if we say that we have a feminist cooperation, that shouldn't surprise anybody. Quite the contrary, it defines what we are. And after that, as I was saying earlier, we have this geopolitical view. It will be kind of like an umbrella for our view, and where we have new positionings, new situations. We have, of course, this increase of new donors. That's really important. We have a decrease of the weight of some of the entities that collaborate. We also have cooperation triangular, and also the neighborhood south. So all this geopolitical scenery is where the European cooperation, as I was talking earlier, and their values and in the world needs to be manifested. Of course, the roadmap is a big part of the development coordination, and our perspective of this coalition is always to create an alliance, to recognize each other globally, and to have this dialogue at a high level. And it has to be bilateral. Somebody is questioning multilateral dialogue, but we are going to be defending this a lot in this presidency, because it's more important than ever. And Europe needs to lead and reinforce in this position, because it is the only way that we can talk about this triple transition that's fair, and is the slogan that leads the 2030 agenda. So to turn this into a reality, so it's not just a slogan. So the way that we are constructing, what we're talking about, what we are going to be talking about today is the build and to work together in a positioning of this country that has a huge importance in this very big, important transition moment. And from the point of view of the positioning of Spain in the European Union, but also the position of the European Union in the world. So in this dialogue, we are going to keep meeting because we are going to keep meeting, have no doubt about it. The opportunity of this presidency that has been working, we're talking, Maria and I, we have been working with this a lot. Spain doesn't improvise. We do not improvise. It's very solid work. The idea is that Spain has the position that it has been having in the international politics, not following others. Sometimes the European Union politics were marked for others. I'm not going to talk about things that are or not are, but European politics were mainly led by France and Germany. Nothing could be done unless France and Germany agree. So now Spain also has its own political positioning. And this is the merit of all of us. So thank you very much for this opportunity. We will keep seeing each other for a long time. Thank you very much.
Muchísimas gracias, Pilar. Y ahora toma la palabra María Lledó, secretaria general para la Unión Europea en el Ministerio.
Thanks a lot, Pilar. We will give floor to the Secretary General for the European Union in international events. Thanks a lot to this Spanish platform. And I wanted to explain how we have prepared the presidency. There are now 30 days more or less to the beginning of this presidency. It's the 5th time we have the opportunity of having the leadership of and having this role. And we felt that the most important already, as Pilar said, Spanish society is solid. It's really empathic. We have prepared presidency as a country. There are lots of people in our ministry who have been preparing this presidency for 2 years without any rest, for 2 years already. And we've tried to put together all the agents of the society. We've been doing a coordination with different ministries, with different points every 3 weeks. We've implemented a project with a document of priorities for the presidency that has been backed by each of the regions in Spain. We've started a project in the Congress with deputies from the end of 2021 with the different political parties. The opposition has also backed this paper, and we've worked mainly with the Spanish platform of NGOs. You know that it's a presidency of the end of a cycle. As you know, we are the last full presidency before the new elections. And there are more than 360 points from which there are lots of them are a priority for Spain. And the idea is to reduce them so that we can focus in the most important points. The priority lines, as Pilar has mentioned, are really clear. For me, it's important to highlight the concept of the need of fighting against the dependence of the European Union. And during the COVID-19, in the European Union, we haven't produced a sole gram of paracetamol. So we are completely dependent on the different laboratories. In other areas also, the main digital platforms are American. So if something happens with them, our digital life is finished. Our social networks, our friends online, will be over. That's why the conference that was held in Granada in October was focused on this, in the health, in the digital area, in energy. And we all know that it's necessary to do a presidency for the people. Spanish presidency will have a very social trend, and our aim is to work for the people. We will highlight the needs of the handicapped, of people with special needs, the fight against violence against women, domestic violence, people living alone, the social inequalities, and of course, the main objective of this presidency will be to fight the aggression of Russia in Ukraine. So our presidency will try to protect and support everything related to the people in need and their situation. And social Europe will not be something isolated. I don't want to talk a lot because there are more important people today with us, but it's important for me the main thing for me is to listen to you all. Pilar has highlighted the European Assembly, the 14th, 15th, focus on the young associations, 18, 17, 18 roundtables to draft the political agenda. Our main objective is to draft the main points and to have a good relationship with the institutions. And we've tried to do that in last years with the same with the United States. So our main objective is to work together in summits with ministries and with civil societies to have them present. That's our plan. We are ready to assume this challenge. We've been working on it for 2 years, and we are proud to hold the presidency of the European Union. And we have a good diplomatic support. We are among the 5 main countries in the European Union, and society supports us. That's the most important fact, because there's no political party against the European Union in Spain. So we have lots of trust in our presidency, and we are ready to start a really good cycle. Thanks a lot for listening to me.
Muchas gracias, María. Y para cerrar esta ronda
Thanks a lot,
inaugural,
María.
es el
And
turno
now to
ahora
close
de
this
Irene Bello,
opening
presidenta de la
part,
Coordinadora.
I welcome Irene Bello, president of the Spanish platform.
Hola, buenos días a todas y a todos. Muchas gracias por acompañarnos hoy en esta jornada,
all of you. Thanks for being with us here in this day. Thanks to all who have joined us here and to those who have connected. It's raining here, but it's not an obstacle to be really happy for being here today. Thanks to Pilar, because she has done a great opening. Thanks to Maria, and thanks to the rest of people who are going to be with us today, to Anton Leis and to the rest of participants. I want to thank you for supporting supporting us today in the first act of the presentation of
Muchas gracias, por
proposals
supuesto,
of the
a todo
Spanish
el equipo
platform of
técnico de la
NGOs.
coordinadora
Thanks to
por
the
hacer
technical
posible
team
esto
of the
y todo
platform
lo que va a ser
for making
el semestre de
making this
presidencia.
possible and for supporting
España
us during
asume
the
esta
whole semester of
presidencia
the
del Consejo de la Unión
presidency.
Europea
Spain
en un
is holding this
momento donde el
presidency in a
contexto es muy
moment in
complejo
which
y el momento es
we are
clave
in a
y
very
las
complex
circunstancias son especialmente
situation. It's
preocupantes.
a key moment, and
El contexto
the
es complejo pues porque
circumstances
estamos
are
viviendo
worrying.
múltiples
We are
crisis
assisting at
globales
a complex
encadenadas
situation
en los
with
últimos
lots of
años
global
que nos han evidenciado y
crises.
nos ponen a prueba
And in the
la
late
capacidad de
years,
nuestras sociedades,
with our
europeas para
capacity,
hacer frente
the capacity of our
al
European
aumento de las
scientists has
desigualdades,
been
la pobreza
challenged
y los
when
desafíos urgentes
fighting
como son
against
el freno a
poverty,
la crisis y
inequalities,
a la emergencia
and
climática.
the
Es
climate
un momento
emergency.
clave también
It's a key moment
porque no
also
podemos
because
postergar más la
we
adopción de medidas
cannot
y de
forget
decisiones
about
políticas que antes
the political
comentaba
measures that
también
have to be
María,
taken,
decisiones
as Maria has
políticas y
mentioned,
económicas para la
to
transición hacia ese modelo
undertake the
social más
transition to a
justo que ponga a las
social
personas en
model
el centro, a
which
las
will be
personas y al planeta.
fairer and which will
Un
be
momento
focusing on people.
especialmente preocupante porque
This
asistimos
moment is
al
also
auge de
worrying because
movimientos políticos y
we
sociales
are
cada
assisting
vez
to
más radicales
a
y
situation in which
contrarios a
there
los
are
valores
more and
de
more
libertad,
radical
igualdad,
political
democracia y respeto de los
options
derechos humanos, que además son
supporting
los valores fundacionales de la propia Unión Europea.
unequal values
No son
which
pocos los hitos que
are against
marcarán
the
la
values of the
agenda de este
European Union.
semestre. María también ha nombrado
This
algunos.
will
Nosotros
not
destacamos
be present
la
in
presentación
the
del primer
agenda of this
examen voluntario de la
semester.
Unión
Maria
Europea
has
sobre el cumplimiento
mentioned
de
the
la Agenda 2030, que
exam
tendrá lugar
on the
durante el Foro
accomplishment
Político
of
de
the
Alto Nivel de
Agenda
Naciones Unidas,
2030,
el relanzamiento de
which will
relaciones
be
bilaterales
dealt
entre
with
Unión Europea
in
y
next
América
forum,
Latina y el Caribe
relationships
en el marco de la
between
cumbre
Latin
del CELAC.
America and the
La
Caribbean
adopción de
in the
directivas de
framework of
debida
the CELAC,
diligencia y
the
contra la violencia de género y violencia
accomplishment of
doméstica, la
the
cumbre euromediterránea
measures
de vecindad sur,
against
la
domestic violence,
revisión
this
del
summit,
tercer plan de acción de la Unión Europea
North-South, the
sobre
third
igualdad de
plan of
género y
action
empoderamiento de
on
las
gender
mujeres
equality
en acción
and women
exterior
empowerment in
2021-2025,
international action from
las
21st to
negociaciones para la
25th,
tramitación
the
y adopción del Pacto
negotiations
Europeo de Migración y
to the
Asilo
adoption
o el
of the
reglamento de la
European Pact
inteligencia
on
artificial.
migrations
Ante
and
estos
asylum,
hitos y en el
and
marco
the
del
law
resto de decisiones que
for
se deben de tomar durante la
regulation of
presidencia en este
the
semestre, desde la
artificial
Coordinadora de
intelligence.
Organizaciones
All of these
para el
are
Desarrollo
priorities,
presentamos
and
hoy
we
nuestras
have
propuestas para la próxima
drafted
presidencia española.
our proposals
Las
in the
hemos
Spanish
resumido, yo
platform
voy a hacer
of
simplemente
NGOs. We have made a
un
summary,
enunciado porque en el día de
and
hoy sí vamos a poder
I
compartir más
will
ampliamente. Por un
only
lado, nuestras
mention some of
reivindicaciones
them
son que
because
el
we
gobierno
will
que
be
asuma la
sharing
presidencia
the document
española
with all
y
of
que
you.
recoja el testigo
Our
después de las elecciones
indications
del 23 de
for the
julio
government, which
esté a la
is
altura de un momento tan
holding the
decisivo y
European
ejerza la
presidency,
presidencia del Consejo de
is
la Unión Europea
to
como un proyecto de país muy por encima de los
have this
intereses
presidency as a
partidistas.
country
Por otro
project
lado,
which is
reivindicamos que
over the
España
interest of
aproveche
parties,
la
of the different
oportunidad
political
única
parties. We
para
want Spain
reivindicar
to
la
take
importancia de
this
los valores
opportunity to
fundamentales
vindicate
que
the importance
mencionábamos
of
antes de la Unión Europea
essential
y
values that
abandere la
we've been
reconversión
mentioning of the
de
European
nuestras
Union,
sociedades a través de
and
la
to
triple
work in
transición
the
justa.
reconversion of
Y
societies
en tercer lugar,
altogether.
queremos que la
In
presidencia
third
española incida
position,
para
we
que todas las
want the
medidas que se
European
adopten en el
presidency
seno de la Unión
to
Europea
work
se rijan
for
por tres principios
the
vertebradores que
policies of
sirvan
the
para
European Union
alcanzar
to
unas
be
reglas del juego
following
justas,
the main
un mundo
principles,
centrado en
which
las
will be
personas que blinde el
to follow
respeto y el
fair
ejercicio de los derechos humanos
rules of the
y un
game,
cambio de
to
mirada que
respect
impulse el enfoque
human rights, and to
feminista,
change
decolonial e interseccional.
the approach to
Mencionaba al
include women and
comienzo
have a feminist
que no podemos
point of
aplazar
view.
más la adopción de estas medidas y decisiones políticas
We've
que
mentioned
reduzcan
that
la pobreza y
these
las
kind of
desigualdades,
measures and
poniendo
decisions
en el
cannot be
centro a las
delayed.
personas
Needs
y a
and
la
poverty
democracia.
must be put in
Para
the center
concluir,
of
quisiera
the different
detenerme
policies.
en este
And
concepto de
to
poner en el
finish
centro
my
a las
speech, I
personas y el planeta
want to
para
insist
reivindicar
on this
la
point,
importancia de garantizar y
having
promover los
people
espacios y mecanismos de
people in
participación de la
need in the
sociedad
center of the
civil
planet,
a través del
and for that
fortalecimiento del
we
Estado de
need
Derecho,
spaces,
la
civic
legislación favorable
spaces,
y
and
el
we need a
refuerzo de estructuras
favorable law
democráticas y
and the
defensa y protección de las
reinforcement of
defensoras
democratic
y defensores de
structures
los derechos humanos
for
que en
the
estos
people
tiempos
who
vivimos muy
support and
preocupantemente.
defend human
Queremos una
rights,
Europa
which are
responsable con
completely
el mundo,
challenged
que
in
respete a
these
todas las
times. And we
personas y
want an
garantice
Europe
todos
which
los derechos
respects
en todos los
all
lugares.
the people
Muchísimas
and which
gracias.
guarantees all the rights all over the world. Thanks a lot.
Muchas gracias, Irene. El acto de hoy es el primero de toda una agenda de acciones de sensibilización e incidencia que llevará a cabo la coordinadora a lo largo de este semestre de la presidencia española. Estas acciones forman parte una Europa abierta, justa,
Of a project toward an open, transparent Europe, which takes to raise awareness and influence the role of the European Union in the achievement of the 2030 agenda that has just been mentioned, and mainly for its contribution to a more equal, inclusive, green and feminist future. All of this in this project of the EU Presidency of the Fourth Trio. This project is financially supported by the European Commission, and Spain is led by the Spanish platform, but it is also implemented in coordination with the European NGO platform Concord Europe and the national NGO platforms in the countries that will hold the presidency of the Council of Spain Union after Spain, which is Belgium and Hungary. It's also developed in coordination with the national NGO platforms of the three previous Spanish presidencies, which were France, Czech Republic, and Sweden, with the intention of giving continuity and coherence to the communication, awareness raising, and political and social advocacy proposals. Before starting the round table,
Before starting the dialogue table, we are going to show you a video
proposals
that
of
shows the
Spanish
proposals
platform for the
of
Spanish
the
presidency of the
Spanish
Council of the
platform of
European Union.
NGOs.
España asume la presidencia del Consejo de la Unión Europea de julio a diciembre de 2023. Esta es una oportunidad única para liderar una agenda europea más responsable con el mundo. Las más de 600 organizaciones que formamos parte de la coordinadora esperamos que la presidencia española impulse una Unión Europea más igualitaria, verde y feminista. En un contexto de múltiples crisis, es hora de cambiar las reglas del juego, reducir las brechas de desigualdad y pobreza, garantizar que todas las empresas respetan los derechos humanos y el medio ambiente, la sostenibilidad ecológica, un futuro digital inclusivo. Esperamos que la presidencia española plantee un mundo centrado en las personas. Los derechos y reivindicaciones de la sociedad civil aquí y en cualquier lugar del mundo deben ser la base de toda decisión política. Defender a quienes defienden los derechos humanos, impulsar una política exterior feminista y decolonial, promover políticas y cultura de paz frente al recrudecimiento de los conflictos, educación, salud y protección de la infancia y juventud, en especial mujeres y niñas. La Unión Europea debe respetar los derechos humanos de las personas migrantes y refugiadas. Es hora de cambiar la mirada por una Europa responsable con el mundo.
Es un reto ambicioso.
It's an ambitious challenge, and we have a lot of work to do, because, as Irene Bello said in her intervention, we live in a world that's marked for multiple global crises that are interconnected. And it's something, as the pandemic shown us and the war in Ukraine, is that there's not isolated facts. Everything that happens in one part of the world affects the rest of the planet. And of course, we also cannot stop and not do anything against the violation of rights, be it close or be it far. We need the responsibility of all the institutions, of course, the media and the society to denounce and act and for it to be fairness, justice, and try to avoid repetition. These are lessons that we have to learn from. But as I am saying, it's not just the consequences of the crisis that matter. I think this is a very important fact that the platform is focusing on, is talking about the causes, because the origin of a lot of this crisis is in structural problems, and that's where the politics are so important, because they're the key to be able to resolve these big issues. Also, here we can see the importance of the main theme that we're going to talk about in this roundtable, and it's the political consistency. The consistency of the politics is understanding that domestic politics and outside action in a country, in this case the European Union, cannot be divided. And it's not possible to define, develop, and implement politics in an isolated way to give a response to unique situations without having a bigger, broader vision of the situations. I want to invite to this roundtable that it's gonna be called consistent politics for a better Europe and the world. We're going to talk about Eva Del Hoyo. She's the director of the Director General for Sustainable Development Policies. She's also responsible for assisting the Secretary of State in the formulation, strategic direction, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation of the international cooperation policy for development and strategy with the framework of the 2030 Agenda. We also have Itziar Ruiz Jiménez. We also have Carlos Botella, is member of the Board of Governors of La Coordinadora and coordinator of Latin America at Intermon, Oxfam. And now we are going to introduce Itziar Ruiz Jiménez. She's a PhD in International Relations from the Universidad Autónoma de Madrid. And I think that to begin, we would like to ask you all the same question. Why is it so important to have all this politics of sustainable development, and what are the keys to be able to define this politics? If you want, Carlos, you can start. I would like to start by thanking the platform to have us all here at the Círculo de Bellas Artes. I also want to thank the team of the platform that's doing this, doing really good work.
Porque yo creo que financie un proyecto de este tipo para que se pueda acompañar de una manera crítica lo que va a pasar en las presidencias, pues yo creo que es una buena práctica, digamos, ¿no? Es una buena forma de hacer. Vamos a hablar de
we are going to talk consistent politics, and we talk about this in the platform in a way to change the world. Then from this point of view, we can transform the world. I would like to start maybe with an analogy, because probably, okay, I keep going. Maybe you have heard about the butterfly effect, that you know that when the flapping of the wings of a butterfly in Brazil creates a tornado in Texas. This was used to talk about the chaos theory, and also it's to say that we have a lot of interconnections in nature, but also we have seen in society, in the countries, and this.
Pero me gustaría llevarlo un poco más allá. Me gustaría que jugáramos un poco. Pensemos en qué pasaría si tomamos como inicio el tornado en Texas. ¿Qué le va a pasar a las pobres mariposas brasileñas? Bueno, pues de esto va la coherencia de políticas. de ese efecto tornado.
So this is
de
what
cómo
the
algunas actuaciones en
politics
el norte
and
global
coherence
tienen
means
efectos
about these tornadoes.
que
How
pueden ser
something in
positivos,
the
pero que pueden ser muy
global
negativos
north
también
have
en el
effects
sur
that can be
global.
positive, but also
Efectos
can be
en el
very
desarrollo,
negatives in
en
the
términos
global south.
ambientales, sociales,
Effects in
políticos.
development
Y por lo tanto,
and events,
toca
social
analizar,
events,
toca
green events,
reorientar
and
esas
we need
políticas
to
para que
analyze,
todo ese paquete de
reorient
efectos,
this
ese efecto
politics
tornado,
so
sea
that all
positivo
this
y no
package
sea,
of effects, all these
contraproducente.
tornadoes are positives and are
Eh,
not
Se ha hablado también del marco,
negative.
¿no? La Agenda
We have
2030
also been
es
talking
la que
about the
nos pone ese
framework.
marco,
The
nos pone unos
2030
retos
agenda
compartidos
is the one that gave us this
a nivel
framework and
global
this shared
y que además
challenges
lanza
in a
unos
global level,
indicadores en
and it
distintos
also
ámbitos del
launches
desarrollo. Y por
these
lo tanto, marca una
indicators in
agenda que
different
es
levels
multidimensional
of
y que tiene
development. It
interconexiones
also
entre
leads an
ellas.
agenda
Esa
that's
mirada también creo que nos
multidimensional
sirve
and it's
para
interconnected.
para
We
la
have
coherencia de
this point of
políticas,
view that
que no podemos
allows
mirar
us to
aisladamente
have
cada uno de
this
esos
political
puntos. Si
consistency.
definiésemos un poco qué es esa coherencia de políticas
If
que
we were to
buscamos,
define
podríamos
this
decir que es la orientación de ese conjunto de políticas
this
públicas
consistent
hacia
politics,
el
we should talk
sostenimiento de
about
la
all
vida,
these public
hacia
politics for sustainability
trabajar
of
dentro de los
life,
límites planetarios
towards
y con una
working
garantía de
inside these
derechos,
planetary
buscando
limits and to
reducir la
have a
pobreza y las
guarantee of
desigualdades
rights,
en el mundo.
trying to reduce poverty and
La
inequalities in the
coordinadora
world.
aplica esta coherencia de políticas, o dice que se tiene que aplicar
The
esa coherencia de políticas en como
platform
4
tries to
niveles.
use these
Uno,
platforms in
una
4 different
coherencia
levels.
entre
One,
los
it's
discursos y la
consistency
acción.
between the
Se ponía, por
dialogue and
ejemplo, hoy
action.
el ejemplo
For
de
example,
la
we were
política exterior
we
feminista
were given the example
que
of the
compartimos, pero que luego se tiene que
politics
aterrizar,
feminism
digamos, en medidas
that we
concretas
share,
para
but we
que
have to
eso
land in
realmente se produzca.
specific politics.
Si miramos a la acción exterior,
If
tiene que haber
we
una
look at
coherencia entre
the
distintos
outside
instrumentos de la acción
politics,
exterior,
there has to be
las
consistency between
exportaciones, la
what's
inversión
outside,
y los elementos de
being
cooperación
investment,
internacional que también
and
están ahí
the
como
elements of
parte
international
definitoria
cooperation
de esa acción exterior.
to be able to define
Si miramos a la
this
propia
politics.
cooperación
If
hacia
we
adentro, tiene que
look
haber coherencia
inside
entre
of
los
the
instrumentos,
cooperation, we have to be
entre, por ejemplo, los
consistent
instrumentos no
between the
reembolsables
tools, for
con los
example,
reembolsables. Y aquí
non-reimbursement
permítanme que haga
tools
una
and the ones that can
mención
be reimbursed. We
al
talk
Fondo
about
Español de Desarrollo Sostenible, al FEDES,
the
porque
FEDES, which
si
is
no
the
lo digo,
Spanish
mis colegas de
Sustainability
la
Fund.
coordinadora pues me matarán, ¿no?
And if I say that in
Pero
the
sí
context
que
of the
desde la coordinadora hemos intentado que
platform,
este
they're going to
fondo
kill me. But
se
from the
inserte
platform,
en
the Spanish
todos los
platform
objetivos de la
NGOs,
cooperación
we try to
española y en todas
insert
las
this in
formas de
all
hacer
the
de la cooperación española,
collaboration in
para que
Spain,
sea inclusivo,
so
para
that
que
everything
tenga
is
esos objetivos de
inclusive,
desarrollo por
everything has
delante.
its own means of development.
Además, también tiene que haber coherencia
Also,
entre
there
la política
needs to be some
exterior,
consistency
esas
between
acciones
the
exteriores
outside
y las acciones
politics
domésticas
and
de
the
los
domestic
países,
actions,
en este caso,
of
sobre todo con enfoque obviamente en
especially
España
focusing
y en la
in
Unión
Spain
Europea.
and in the European Union
Cuando
and
hablamos de
its
política de migración, de política energética,
global.
de
When
política
we
de
talk about
fiscalidad,
immigration,
todos estos tienen que
all the
digamos,
taxation,
compartir ese
we
enfoque
need to share
de
this
desarrollo
focus
sostenible
of
para que,
sustainable
de nuevo,
development,
eso,
so that
no se produzca ese
again,
efecto tornado
we don't
y
have this
acaben
tornado effect
teniendo, digamos, impactos
linked
negativos en el
and
sector.
have negative impacts.
Hoy, como se decía, lo que venimos
Today,
es de
as we
alguna
were
manera
saying,
pedir
we
a
are
la Unión
here to
Europea
ask the European
una mirada
Union
responsable,
to ask for a
una
responsible
corresponsabilidad
look,
con
being responsible
los países con los que comparte
with
digamos,
countries
agendas
that
políticas,
share
comparte
the
vecindad,
politics
comparte
agendas.
visiones,
They share
para que
also political views
impulse esfuerzos para
to
que los
implement
derechos estén en el
this
centro de la
right, so
acción
that
política. Los derechos, el
the
desarrollo
rights are in the
sostenible,
middle of this
estén en
politics.
el
This
centro de esta
sustainable development is at the center of
Y
this
si vamos a
politics.
acciones
And if
concretas,
we are going to talk
para
about
decir,
specific
bueno, ¿y de qué estamos
actions,
hablando?
so
¿Qué
what are we
pedimos
talking about?
concretamente?
What are we asking
Hay todo un
for
documento que se
exactly?
presenta hoy
We are
que emana
presenting
de
a
este
document
proyecto que
that
tiene una
comes out of
serie
this
de
project that has a
medidas
series
concretas
of
que la coordinadora impulsa.
the
Solo voy a nombrar
lists
algunas.
that
Ya
we are
se ha hablado
going
como de
to
los
different
grandes
actions
bloques.
that we are
Voy
going
a
to
nombrar
use.
2 o
I'm
3
just
y con
going
eso
to
lo
talk
dejaré.
about 2 or 3 of these
Primero, un
different
bloque que tiene
actions
que ver con unas reglas de
and
juego
blocks.
más
First is a
justas.
block that has
Se ha hablado, por ejemplo, de empresas y derechos humanos.
fair
Para la coordinadora y para
rules of the
muchas
game
organizaciones de la
for
sociedad
the
civil,
platform
el
and for
accionar de las empresas
for the
dentro
civil
de las
society.
fronteras
We
europeas,
have
no
to
las
be able
europeas,
to
y
talk
fuera,
about all of this
tiene que estar guiado
inside
por
the
esos derechos
European
humanos, por
borders
esa
and
sostenibilidad
outside.
ambiental.
And we talk about we need to talk about human rights and this sustainability and development. Again, talking about this tornado, trying to avoid negative impacts for development. Something else that we want to highlight is the taxation needs to be fair taxation that helps with crisis, all the crises that we have been talking about, and it's also to reinforce the social protection in countries, try to avoid fraud and fiscal evasion inside and outside of the European borders. Another point here is try to avoid the ecological footprint and try to see and that everything is green and to change the way of life of the European Union because of the impact that it has in the European Union and also in the global setting. Another big block that the Spanish platform is proposing is a world centered in people. We talked about peace, development, and humanitarian help. And excuse us because the sound
También
was
promover una acción exterior europea, española y europea orientada hacia la paz. Se ha hablado también en el vídeo. Y la secretaria de Estado, de hecho, decía, quiero hacer ahí un pequeño juego, ella hablaba del alma de Europa. Ojalá en la acción exterior esté el alma de Europa y no el arma de Europa.
So we're talking about the soul of Europe, not the weapon of Europe. So this exterior politics needs to be done in this peace context. Talking about also asylum that are displaced people and migrants, especially women and girls, everything needs to be done and included in all this politics. There's a third block that is talking about a change in the look. Have specific politics, but we also think that we need to transform the gaze and what we see domestic politics. We also talked about this politics. Feminist look with intersectional economics that try to stop the discrimination of certain sectors. If we talk Latin America, for example, we want to highlight the special relationship. We shouldn't start a new cycle of activism, of this activism 2.0, talking about not changing that oil and gold by lithium. So we cannot have these bad practices that we had in the past. I'm gonna start and end with this, with like an ad, if you will. The platform is gonna launch June 21st. It's gonna launch an index for sustainable development, and we're going to analyze the different politics in different countries, and also always as an element and a critical analysis of the public politics. Everybody can participate. We have different ambassadors here in Madrid, and you will receive information. Thank you very much, Carlos.
Y ahora, si quieres, Eva, vamos con una breve intervención de cada uno y luego preguntas.
So we'll give the floor to each of the members of the table, and then we will continue. Sorry for interrupting. I wanted to go in depth.
¿No se oye? Sí, sí. Pues igual, es que sí, es un poquito más cerca.
Can you hear me?
Un poco en la...
Okay. What I want is to mention the priorities that we've chosen.
Simplemente añadir o empezar añadiendo que
I want to start adding that the priorities that we've been choosing for the presidency from the point of view of cooperation are priorities
el cumplimiento de la Agenda 2030 como eje central
de las Agenda 2030 as the main axis of our priorities and of the work we want to conduct.
La Agenda 2030
I think that a country that believes in the Agenda 2030, its global dimension, and which works for its implementation at all levels, if there is a country that follows all of this, is Spain. We've already mentioned that. I think it was the General Secretary of State that the European Union for the first time has presented this proposal in a key moment. And before the ministerial week, it was a moment of checking where we are and thinking how to approach the years that we have from now to 2030. And that's why the United Nations has called Spain a preferred partner to implement a series of initiatives. That's why I always say that the Agenda 2030 and all the range of policies and measures for financing and development, in my opinion, is one of the parts to which we give more cohesion in our actions. There's also a high-level dialogue that was conducted in the ministerial week regarding funding. Spain will be highly present when thinking on the different initiatives. I also wanted to add that we've tried to be coherent. Maria has mentioned the different presidencies that we've held before, the last in 2010, and in all of them, we've retaken the priorities. And now we want to continue with one of the priorities of 2010. But we have to consider that there's also the Agenda 2030, but there are subjects in which Spain is mainly interested and which we want to highlight together with the European partners, with the institutions, and we want to put them on the table again during this presidency. I don't want to go into detail in all of them, but I want to mention the priorities from the point of view of cooperation and how we are going to approach them. And I want to add some which are more specific. As the Secretary of State has mentioned, first of all, the Team Europe is one of our priorities in 2010. We mentioned it joint programmation, and we have undertaken a new version of this priority. We want to analyze the situation after the Global Gateway, and we want to see what to implement in cooperation and sustainable development within the Team Europe and taking into account the expectations of this Team Europe. We want to check what we think that we need to retake because it has been left aside. And what we want to do is coherent. Doesn't matter if we call it Agenda of Development, if it considers the main priorities in which we work together with our partners, we will be progressing on it. We cannot put onto the table a proposal to compete with another agent, for example, to compete with China. The idea is to do the things as we usually do, as we can, and with a dialogue in which we'll take into account policy first, because policy is a priority, dialogue is a priority. We need to listen to the countries and to the people. And second, We need an approach to the impact in development. We want to check what we want to achieve and which elements we have to achieve that. Then we have to organize the different actors. It's essential, and we need to present ourselves as a team. And in the European initiatives, that's important to keep going forward. But it's not only about acting all together, it's also about drafting a dialogue, doing a joint analysis, and not only the more powerful partners must work on it, all the different agents must take part, and we have to do that European team. On the other hand, the Secretary of State was mentioning transitions, countries in transition, and we want to approach the social dimension of transitions, and again, taking into account the Agenda 2030, we will take into account 3 dimensions that have to be balanced. And we have to take into account that for cooperation, we cannot forget about different elements. We have to do a digital transition, a green transition, but it has to come along with the social actions and with other considerations, which are traditional to cooperation, taking into account gender considerations, health, education, the fiscal policies, which take into account redistribution, a state of welfare. Without all of this, we cannot deal with a sustainable transition. And that's what the different countries are asking for. It's not about starting the digital transition. It's about considering what's needed, what's negotiated, and what can we do? That's what is being asked for. We've assisted to this with COVID, with education, with health. We want to keep working in this triple transition, taking into account this social dimension. Gender, of course, is one of the priorities. We want to focus on the cares, will introduce it in the social dimension and in the Team Europe. For gender, we don't have conclusions yet, but we need to draft some for the initiative Spotlight, and we want to deal with the initiative of care, which is one of the main points, which must be one of the focus points, which was highlighted during the COVID-19. Then another subject regarding humanitarian action, development, and peace. This part is covered from the Cooperation Agency. Anton will be able to explain it in detail, but I cannot forget to mention the global dimension of challenges and the global challenges, I mean. That's one of our priorities. We have to take into account the war in Ukraine and its consequences. So we need to deal with this situation. We need to give answers to these conflicts. We have to consider the funding of the reconstruction, because reconstruction will be needed, and we need to check the links between energy, construction, and so on. And there's a priority that needs to be mentioned here. Maria has mentioned that we've been working on this presidency for 2 years, and we've changed lots of things. We've adapted them. And one of the priorities that wasn't within our drafts a year ago, and that has gained force lately, and in the context of the World Bank, is the remodelation of banks so that they become people purpose, so that they serve to what they need to serve. We are talking about development bank, about the economy ministries in different countries. We want to empower dialogue between the ministries and the different economic lines and development lines. We want to hold joint meetings at different levels, mainly taking into account the preparation of the meetings in autumn. The priority is the remodelation of banks in general. It's part of the Spanish approach to development funding and the accomplishment of the agenda. And we are doing a great work here. We know that we are working in important facts, and we are arriving to important conclusions. The subject of the debt, it's been put on the table in New York as well. Regarding technology, there are also some progresses. It's a moment to talk about funding. In 2025, there will be a summit in which we'll be dealing with the needs for the accomplishment of the Agenda 2030. And I think that remodeling banks is a first part of it, but this will be part of a more ambitious package, because if not, in 2027, the southern countries will say that they have nothing else to negotiate if they haven't got anything of what we promised to them. I think it's a matter of balance in which donating countries need to act. And I cannot finish my speech without mentioning localization. We preside the groups of CODEF on development, humanitarian action, and also we work together with the Secretary of State in the work group for the Agenda 2030, together with volunteers, and we want to work specifically with this subject, the matter of localization. I think that Spain has been highlighted because of the initiatives that have been proposed, and in this specific part, we would like to get some help to keep progressing.
Estamos en ello. Evidentemente, bueno, la cumbre UCLAC y todo lo que hay alrededor a mitad de julio, el High Level en Política en julio también. El día 4 y 5 de julio, el 5 más bien, estamos planeando un seminario sobre la tasa de transición.
We are planning a meeting for development with Latin America. We will be holding a meeting on development in Cádiz in September. On the 11th of October, there will be another act. And in the Team Europe, we are also working in more actions.
Gracias, Eva.
Thanks a lot, Eva. Itzia, you have the floor.
Buenos días a todas y todos.
Good morning.
No sé si es el momento de ser pragmática o es el momento de intentar ser audaces.
Yo puedo intentar practical
que parece que estamos en crisis, aparentemente por ciertas cosas.
We are in crisis due to different facts, and we need to accept that these crises are here, and we need to be conscious of them. And that's why we need to be practical, and with pragmatism, we need to start thinking of what things we need to implement to have a coherent European policy. I have to apologize, but you invited me. I have to say that I'm immersed in a crisis, and I think that the problem is to accept that we live in a complex world, and that we live within this crisis, and we only can think on how can we get these European policies to deal with that, considering its DNA, for example, because European policies are
crisis en las que vivimos, la crisis poliédrica, política, socioeconómica, de género, de cuidados, medioambiental,
different crises to which we assist are not a product of the war of Ukraine or the COVID-19. The European policy and European spirit is something we can change. The NDA may be not, but the spirit can be changed because spirit is based on values, on words, on sustainable development, peace, democracy. All these words are nowadays in the framework of Europe, but they are not part of the European policies approach. And what I mean is that the commercial policies, defense, human assistance, the policies promoting gender equality, or health policies, or education policies in and out of Europe, all of them do not need to be coherent, but they need to be aligned to some values. So we need these policies which seem to be neutral to align with the needs of people. And the thing is that the spirit of Europe needs to be based in cannot be based in the defense of the privilege of a few people as they have. The policies are extremely coherent, so I propose to leave aside the word coherence, to leave aside the word development, to leave aside the word sustainable development, and to name the kind of policies we are making. And then we can start talking all together on which is our roadmap to align the policies, which is not to harmonize or to make more coherent the policies of the European Union, which allow defend only a few people, which defend an economic model which is criminal and killer, which is a neoliberal economical system which defends racism, capacitism, and a conception of life which support not people or life, but the criminal privilege of those who have been for centuries in a war, and I'm talking about Europe and also United States, China, within a pool of agents, which is really complex. And this group of agents have been in war for very long against life and against people. And the speech, the framework of the speech in which the proposals of the European Spanish Presidency has been drafted is a speech framework which is deeply racist, because Europe is a daughter of Mars, and for the last months we've militarized the life. That's been the bet in Europe. That's been our answer to the war in Ukraine and the answer to the crisis of the COVID-19. Our answer has been to keep the privilege of some people against the privilege of the rest of the European citizens. And proposal is not to be coherent. My proposal is to be dissident, because this speech that we are proposing on what and how the European policy should be is based in not speaking on something which is key to the Agenda 2030, because Agenda 2030 is also a tool to keep advancing towards a system based on men, white European men, who are predators of life and cares. Maybe because of this, we should start to put all the ideas on the table. I'm sorry because I'm not here to propose new measures, but here we have to sit and think pragmatically on what can we do to change all those things that seem not possible to change. That's my main proposal. We need to keep working in order to stop using a few set of words. Up to now, is there a new way to change the meaning of the word development so that it means something which is powerful? I think no. I think that word is not useful anymore because it is within the framework in which we've established the socio-economical model, which is a killer model. That's why we need to look for other frameworks, other approaches to push towards the lines that we want to implement. There are other meanings for that word, maybe. To put in the focus people and the planet. And this has nothing to do with the sustainability of development. There are other words to speak about peace, which have nothing to do about selling arms to anybody participating of a war. Because that way of understanding peace or understanding development is completely killer. And apart from that, is the biggest proud of capitalism, which works in the business of security. So we have to stop calling peace what is not peace and stop calling development what it has nothing to do with development. And if you allow me to say it, we should stop talking about
cooperation.
Quizás no
Maybe
tengamos que hablar de
we
seguridad
shouldn't be
alimentaria,
cooperating. Maybe
del
we shouldn't be
triple
dealing
nexo.
with the
Quizás lo que
food
tenemos que hacer
safety or the
es
triple
decolonizar
link.
nuestra
Maybe
mirada
we should
para
start
empezar a trabajar
decolonizing our
con
approach,
otras y con otros. Y
decolonizing our
trabajar
look,
con otras y
and
con otros
start
no es
working
trabajar
with
con el sur
other
global,
people. And
no es
I'm not
trabajar
talking
con
about
el
working with
resto
the
de las
south of the
sociedades
world.
europeas,
I'm not talking
sino
about
trabajar
working
con el sur
together
global,
with
con
other
Europa,
European
con
societies,
todas aquellas
but
y
I'm
aquellos que
saying
cotidianamente establecen redes de
what I mean is
resistencia y
working with
disidencia
all those
y que
people in
el
Europe
referente
who day after day
político-moral no
propose
es la Europa del privilegio, sino esas
resistance
otras Europas,
networks
esas otras Españas,
and who
esos
are not
otros
part
sures
of the
que
Europe
están
of the
y
privilege,
llevan
but are
siglos
the other Europe, the
resistiendo
other
a
Spain,
ese
the other
cerebro, a
South,
esa
and that
alma
have
de Europa
been
o de quien sea.
resisting to this
Gracias,
Europe
Itziar.
and to this European spirit. Thanks a lot, Itziar.
Bueno, ahora me gustaría plantearos algunas preguntas. Empiezo contigo, Carlos, porque uno de los eventos claves de esta presidencia de España es la cumbre de la Unión Europea, CELAC. Y tal como has mencionado, desde la coordinadora, esta cumbre va a suponer como un relanzamiento de las relaciones bilaterales entre la Unión Europea y América Latina y Caribe. Carlos, la pregunta es, ¿cuáles deberían ser las claves de este marco de relaciones entre las dos regiones para que se pueda llevar a cabo, y voy a utilizar una palabra que a Itziar no le gusta, para que se pueda llevar a cabo desde la coherencia política?
Muchas gracias. Sí, yo creo que efectivamente es un momento histórico de reencuentro entre las dos regiones de América Latina y Europa. Tenemos que partir honestamente de que esas relaciones han sido asimétricas históricamente. Entonces, para construir una nueva relación horizontal entre esas dos regiones tenemos que partir de esa simetría para intentar reducirla y balancearla. Con la idea de construir un espacio euro-latinoamericano de progreso, si queremos llamarlo. Pero no reconocer esas asimetrías no ayudará a construir una relación más balanceada. Una relación en la que no todo vaya de inversiones económicas, obviamente.
Not
Esas
everything is
inversiones
about
económicas, sean
investment.
en el ámbito digital, en el ámbito
Investment can be digital.
ambiental,
It can
de
be
infraestructuras
global
o
in
de
the
servicios, siempre
ambiental.
estén,
It can be in
digamos, cruzadas
infrastructure.
con
So it can
un
always
enfoque de
be
derechos
crossed
y un
with
enfoque ambiental que
focus
permita
on rights and the
apostar
environment,
o impulsar
and that's
estos elementos
trying
del
to
desarrollo
use
sostenible
this
que mencionamos.
sustainable
Porque
development that we were talking about
es importante
earlier.
cerrar brechas digitales,
It's really
es
important to close
importante
digital gaps.
mejorar el uso de la
It's
tecnología,
important to
de la
improve
inteligencia artificial,
technology,
pero siempre
AI,
con ese
but
enfoque
always
de
with this
democracia y de
focus
derechos,
in the democracy and
con un
democracy of
enfoque
rights.
feminista que decíamos
The
es a cambiar
feminist
la mirada,
focus, I was saying earlier, changing
y que
our
permita de
gaze,
alguna manera que esas
that
transiciones
allows
de
in
las
a
que se ha
way
hablado y
that
que
this
también hemos hablado un
transition
poco,
that we were talking
sean
about
realmente
and that
justas.
we're insisting on that they are
Sin
fair.
embargo, lo que estamos viendo con el
But what
anticipo
we
de una
can
nueva
see
agenda de
with we're
la Unión
anticipating
Europea
this
para
new
América Latina
agenda
no va tanto en
for
esa dirección.
the EU for
No tiene tan
Latin
buena
America.
pinta,
It's
podemos decirlo
not
así.
going in this direction. It
Los documentos
doesn't
que
look
nos están
that
llegando
good.
estos días,
What we have
creemos que
been seeing
desde el
these
ámbito de la sociedad
days,
civil
we
pues
believe
no
that from the
otorgan la suficiente relevancia
civil
a ese
society
espacio de
don't
las
have
sociedades
are
civiles
not pertinent.
diversas
There's
de las dos
this
regiones
civic
que puedan
society
apoyar,
on
que
these
puedan
two
construir
regions that can build, that
esos
can
sistemas
support
democráticos más
this
inclusivos
democratic system
y
that are more
más cohesionados.
inclusive and
Además, el enfoque
cohesive.
parece estar muy centrado en los términos económicos.
Moreover, this needs to be, it's centered in the economy, of course.
Ese bloque para nosotros no es uno más, sino que es el central.
It's something that it doesn't need to
de la
center
mirada
just
social,
on
de la mirada
that.
de los
It needs to
derechos,
have also
pues
a
parece estar un poco
social
relegado
gaze
en
or
segundo plano.
civil rights gaze,
y
and
sin
it
embargo
looks like
creemos
it's a
que hay
little
agendas
bit
compartidas
set aside.
con
We need
América
to
Latina
have
en la defensa de
shared
los derechos
agendas with
humanos,
Latin
en el
America,
fortalecimiento
defending
del espacio
human
cívico,
rights,
el
also
espacio que tienen
empowering
las organizaciones y las personas
these
defensoras
organizations and
para
the advocates
aportar y construir
have to
democracias inclusivas
give and build inclusive
y que debe ser
politics.
protegido.
And it needs
Debe
to
ser
be
protegido en el
protected.
ámbito
This needs to be
de la
protected
acción
in the
política, de la
setting
participación,
of
y
the
deben ser
political
protegidas las
action.
personas que ejercen
Participation
esos
and
derechos.
people that have
Y,
these rights need to be
y
protected
estamos
as
viendo
well.
que
We are
en
also
América Latina,
seeing that in
pero también en
Latin
algunos países
America
de
and
Europa,
also in
digámoslo,
some countries in
ese
Europe, we
espacio
have
se
to say
reduce
it, this space is
se
reduced
persigue
and
esa
it's
disidencia de la que hablaba
persecuted.
también.
This dissidence that it's here was mentioning
Partimos,
earlier.
decíamos, de una relación asimétrica.
We are starting, as we
En
say,
América
with an
Latina, las
asymmetric
brechas de desigualdades
relationship.
han crecido en los
The
últimos tiempos,
inequity gaps in Latin America are huge.
observándose una serie de desigualdades
And we can
multidimensionales
observe
que
a
tienen que
series of
ver con
multidimensional
brechas en el ámbito de la
inequities that
salud, de la educación,
are
de la
related with
participación
gaps in
política,
education, health, political participation,
y que además
and
llevan a que
moreover,
exista una
they
brecha, una separación cada vez
yield
mayor
to
entre las
this
élites,
separation and a bigger gap between
entre los
elites,
millonarios, ¿no? que han crecido
between the
hizo crecer un 20%
millionaires
su
that have
riqueza
grown
desde la pandemia,
20%,
mientras ese 60%
their
de la
rich,
población en América
the
Latina está en condiciones de
richness has
vulnerabilidad.
increased
Entonces,
20%
vemos
since
cómo
the pandemic,
se amplían esas
and
brechas.
we can see that these gaps
Y
are
especialmente
growing.
afectados son los grupos indígenas, los
Especially
afrodescendientes,
affected
personas con
are, of course,
discapacidad, colectivos
indigenous groups,
LGTBI,
people with
que
disabilities,
sufren, digamos, la represión
that suffer
política, económica, de una
political
manera
and
más
economical repression in a
y
heavier
para
way,
nosotros es crucial
in a
abordar
deeper
estas
way.
desigualdades
For us,
en el
it's
centro de
crucial
esa nueva agenda
to
de
face
Europa
this
con América Latina,
difference in this agenda between Europe and
para
Latin
promover
America, to
acciones de protección
promote
social,
actions
una
for
economía de
social
los
protection,
cuidados que ponga
economy of care
el cuidado de la vida al
that
centro de los
takes care
sistemas,
and puts this care in the center of the
mejores
systems,
servicios
better
sociales
social
y
systems,
con una relación
and
birregional con mirada
also
feminista.
bi-regional relationship that's feminist.
Y ahí nos lleva también al
And this
ámbito de
also
las tres
leads
transiciones
us
que
to
la
these
transición
three
ecológica, la
transitions that
transición
we're talking
digital
about,
y la transición
ecological,
socioeconómica,
digital, and
que para
socio-economical.
nosotros
This,
suponen
for
abrir la
us,
agenda más
means
allá de lo que
opening the
sería una
agenda
agenda
beyond
económica
an
para llevarla a
economical
una
agenda
agenda
and
de
have an
de
agenda
justicia social,
that
si queremos, una agenda de
has
derechos,
social
con estos
justice,
enfoques
an agenda
feministas,
of rights
decoloniales,
with this
interseccionales en el centro.
decolonizer,
Es
feminist,
como
and intersectional rights at the center.
policy first y politics first, o sea,
Policy
el
first and
discurso político
politics
y las
first.
acciones políticas
So
en el centro de
this
ese
has to be at the core of the
para que esto
discourse. And
conforme una
so,
hoja de ruta, porque obviamente
this
esta nueva
creates
relación no
this
se agota con la
roadmap that we
presidencia
were talking
española,
about,
sino
because
que
this is not
tiene
just,
que
this doesn't end
fortalecerse en
in
el
Spain.
futuro
It needs to be stronger in the
y
future.
que establezca una serie de
And it
mecanismos
needs
de
to
diálogo
establish
regional
some mechanisms of
inclusivos
regional
también, no
dialogue that
solo
are
entre
inclusive,
gobiernos,
not only
sino que
between
otros
amongst
actores
governments, but with
que
other
trabajan en
members that are
digamos, en el
working,
fortalecimiento democrático, la acción
that
social,
talk in this like strengthening of
en
the
el refuerzo de esos
democracy
espacios cívicos que
and
hablábamos,
reinforcing
estén
the
también
civic
presentes de una
spaces that we
manera
were
regular
talking
en ese
about. This need to
mecanismo
be present as way
de
in
diálogo permanente,
a regular
incluyendo las
basis,
sociedades
including
civiles de ambas regiones.
civic societies of both regions, of
Y
course.
si vamos a cosas concretas,
And if we are more specific,
déjame nombrar un par de cuatro
we should
ámbitos
talk about more like four settings where
Uno
we
es
are
el Global Gateway.
centering. One is
Se ha
the
hablado de esta
global
iniciativa de
gateway. We
inversión,
talked about
que
this
es un poco la
investment
apuesta de la Unión
initiative.
Europea
It's
en
the
un mundo
what
de
the European
competencia
Union
geopolítica.
wants to do in this
Es la ruta de la
geopolitical
seda china
coherence
adaptada
world.
a la mirada
Needs to be
europea.
competent.
Bueno, pues
Has
para
in this
nosotros
European gaze.
esto tiene que
For
cambiar mucho
us,
para
this
que
has to
realmente
change a lot,
contribuya a esa
so that it really
relación
contributes to this
horizontal,
relationship, this
equitativa,
horizontal,
con mirada feminista,
equitative,
de
feminist,
los derechos que queremos construir para América Latina.
and with the
Tiene que tener una
stated
gobernanza
rights
mucho más
that
inclusiva,
needs to
tiene que
have. It
tener
needs
unos
to
objetivos
be a
sociales y ambientales
governance. It has to be a governance that's more
en el
inclusive.
centro de su accionar.
It needs to keep this at the core of its action.
Y además pareciera que
And
esta
moreover, it looks like
herramienta
this
de inversión lo que va a
investment
buscar es
tool,
bueno, pues el
what's
fomento de las
looking for
exportaciones
its
y de las inversiones de empresas europeas en el mundo,
center in
concretamente en América Latina.
European investments and
Cuando todos los
especially
análisis
in
nos dicen que
Latin America.
ligar,
On the
conectar, obligar
analysis says that linking
al uso de
or
empresas de un determinado país
making some companies from a specific country.
Dos cosas más. Una es
Two more
fiscalidad.
things.
Lo hemos
One is
mencionado antes también
taxation.
como una
We talked
parte
about
tan
this
influyente en
earlier.
la
This is a
coherencia de
very
políticas. Para el
important
caso de
part in
América
the
Latina, hay una
consistency of
iniciativa
politics. We
de
have an
un nuevo pacto fiscal
initiative,
regional liderado
this
por
regional
Colombia, en el que ya se han
fiscal
sumado algunos
pact,
países como Chile, como Brasil,
and
y que
Colombia, Brazil, Chile
intenta
have
impulsar
joined this,
una
and
nueva
it's trying
fiscalidad más
to
progresiva en la región. Y para
launch
nosotros eso debe ser
this
como un
economical
núcleo del trabajo en fiscalidad con
nucleus,
América Latina,
and
¿no?
this needs to
La
be
Unión
the
Europea
center of the
debe
work,
apoyar
the fiscal work
esa
that we're doing with
iniciativa
Latin
y
America.
debe
And
coordinar con esta
this
iniciativa
initiative needs to
posiciones
be
en el ámbito global
coordinated
también respecto de la
in a global setting as well,
de la fiscalidad
in the,
internacional.
as we
Y
say, in
también
setting of taxation.
trabajando por mejorar la
We
tributación
are
a la
also
riqueza
trying
y la
to
lucha contra la
improve
evasión y la elusión
taxation
fiscal.
and with working
Y por
against
último, una cosa como muy concreta también,
the poor,
para
having
nosotros
less
esa hoja de ruta
poor people, and
tiene
we
que ser,
want to change this road
digamos, con una
map
mirada larga, una
with
mirada de futuro.
a
Y
long
como decíamos, tiene que
gaze,
establecerse
looking at the
también
future, and
mecanismos para el
we
seguimiento de
need to
esas agendas
establish
compartidas con
mechanisms to
América Latina.
follow these agendas with
Desde el
Latin
ámbito
America,
gubernamental y también desde otros ámbitos. Y por lo
from
tanto,
the
desde
governmental
estos otros
side and
ámbitos
other
proponemos que haya una estructura
sections as
permanente
well.
de diálogo
The
multiactor,
settings
que
need to
esté
have a
también la
permanent
sociedad civil
structure and
y que permita
dialogue
hacer un
with
seguimiento
this
continuado
social
de esas agendas
structure that
compartidas con
needs
la
to
región o
keep
entre las dos regiones y
supervising these two
que
agendas,
permita, al fin y al cabo, proteger
and
de
also
forma efectiva
allows
los derechos
protecting
humanos,
in an effective
promover la
way human
democracia y
rights,
respetar
promote
y
democracy,
fortalecer los espacios
and
cívicos
strengthen civic
con esa
spaces
mirada que decíamos
with this
colonial,
gaze that we were
feminista,
talking about,
que
this feminist,
aborde de una manera
decolonizer
firme
gaze
la reducción
that
de las desigualdades en la
that
región.
talks in a firm way this
Y una de las
inequalities.
propuestas quizás también más
Thank you.
interesantes o una
One of
de las
the,
exigencias
very
de la
important,
coordinadora es que haya un enfoque de
platform is
esta
talking
presidencia
about
que
is
ponga
an,
en el centro a las
this
personas y
presidency
al
needs to
planeta
focus
ante la
in
crisis
the planet
democrática,
and in people,
social, medioambiental, humanitaria,
and against
alimentaria o
this
energética. Y Ciar, ¿cómo es
social,
posible
environmental,
realizar
humanitarian
esa transición
crisis?
hacia un
How is
modelo
it
social más
possible to
justo
make
en
this
lo
transition
socioeconómico, lo
towards
ecológico y lo
a
digital,
fairer
pero
social
desde
model
un enfoque
in the
feminista,
socio-economic,
decolonial e
ecological
interseccional?
areas from a feminist, decolonial, and intersectional approach? All right, well, 5 minutes.
Yo lo primero que me pregunto es por qué hemos
Well,
elegido que la
what I
transición tiene que
wonder
ser
is
para un modelo social más justo en lo ecológico, digital y socioeconómico.
what has
¿Por qué estamos
everything
eligiendo lo digital?
to do.
¿Por qué estamos eligiendo lo ecológico? ¿Y por qué todo eso no tiene nada que ver con lo socioeconómico? ¿Y por qué no hablamos del
Why
poder?
are we choosing the
Buscamos
economical?
cómo hacer una
Why
transición para
don't we choosing
transformar el poder
ecology?
que conforma
Why
el
don't
escenario
we
digital,
talk about
que conforma
power?
el escenario
And why
ecológico
don't
y que
we
conforma
talk
el
on
escenario
what is
socioeconómico? Bueno, pues yo
making up
hablaría
the
de tres cosas que se podrían hacer si
socio-ecological
queremos un
scenario?
poquito
So I
avanzar
could mention a
en
couple of
reflexionar
things that
juntas y
we could be
juntos
doing
los retos
if
que
we
tendríamos
want
si
to
alguien realmente estuviera
think
de
of
acuerdo en que tenemos que
the
adoptar un enfoque
challenges that
feminista y
we will
decolonial.
find
En
if
esta
someone
sala quizás
will
haya
accept that
cierto acuerdo
we
sobre esa
can
hoja de ruta,
approach
pero a mí
that
me da
and
que no
decolonialist
está eso
approach.
en el sentido
If
común
you all
y en
agree
los
in this
marcos del
room that
relato de
this
la
is
inmensa
not
mayoría
within
de
common
las
sense
sociedades que
and the
conforman
framework
el
of
centro
the
de
ideas
este modelo.
of the
Y entonces
majority
quizás
of
tengamos que
this
empezar a
society
pensar
that are part of the
en
model,
cómo
maybe we
conversar
should
con otras
start
y otros que no ven desde esa
thinking
mirada las cosas para
of
que vean por qué es
talking to
importante que la vean
people who have a
desde esa
different
mirada
approach
feminista y
so
so that
decolonial.
they
Pero en todo caso, a mí me
adopt
parece que uno de
this
los
feminist
primeros
and
ámbitos
decolonialist
de
approach.
actuación en un efecto de rama,
And
cogiendo un
there's
repositorio
a branch
enorme,
effect, and
milenario
we
y lleno
could
de saberes y
take
formas de hacer,
all
que son
that,
de todas aquellas y aquellos que han
all
sido
those
llamados
arguments,
brujas y brujos, y
millenary
yo me pongo
arguments
del
of
lado
those
de las brujas y de los
wise
brujos
people,
a la hora de plantear propuestas para esa
witches
transición
that
ecológica,
have been working
socioeconómica
and
y digital,
proposing ideas,
están
and we
llevan siglos hablando,
should
pero no las
taking all
escuchan.
their ideas
Y
because they've been
además
talking
se
for
les
centuries and they
elimina.
haven't been heard,
Y entonces, desde
and
ahí me parece
instead
que
they've
lo que hay que
been
hacer es transformar
eliminated.
los
So
instrumentos
we
normativos,
should
políticos y jurídicos
transform
que están
political,
profundamente al servicio
legal and
del proceso de
economical
acumulación
tools
y
because they
acaparación por
serve the
desposesión
process of
del privilegio de sus
accumulation
pocos a
and
costa de la
deprive
vida de todas las
of
demás. Y por
the
tanto hay que
privilege
cambiar
of
las
the rest of the
leyes
people, and
para
we
que
should be
reviertan la
changing the laws so
privatización
that
de
they
todos los
revert the
bienes públicos y
privatization
comunes.
of
Y eso
all
significa
common and public
que hay que trabajar a tres niveles. Hay que
goods.
trabajar en el
So
nivel
we need to
político
work
y hay
at
que
three
empezar a
levels in
pensar cómo
political level
transformamos un escenario político profundamente autoritario,
think on how to
antidemocrático.
transform this
En todas sus regímenes
authoritarian,
políticos del mundo.
anti-democratic
Porque
model,
convertir la democracia
and
en votar cada cierto tiempo
because we have to
determinadas opciones
think that
políticas quizás
transforming
no sea el
democracy
único
into
significado
an
que podemos
election
dotarle a la
vote
palabra
every 4
democracia.
years
Y por tanto hay
cannot
que
be
hacer un esfuerzo
considered
importante por
democracy. So we need to do a big
desmontar
effort
el
to
andamiaje político, jurídico,
transform
normativo que
the
sostiene el
political,
privilegio y
legal,
que sostiene la
and
corrupción, el fraude,
law
la
framework which
privatización de la vida
sustain,
y
which
la
support
seguritización de la vida
this
política
system,
aquí,
which
en
is a
Europa y
fraud
en todo el mundo.
against
Me parece que
the
también sería muy
political life
importante
here and everywhere in the
en
world.
el ámbito socioeconómico,
In the
desde esa
socio-economic
perspectiva feminista y
framework
decolonial,
from this
desmontar el andamiaje
feminist
político,
and
jurídico y
anti-colonial
normativo que
view,
sostiene
it will be
este
important
sistema
to
profundamente criminal
transform
y poner en el
all
centro de aquí hay
this
un debate que tenemos que tener.
framework which
No sé si
supports
es
the current system,
interesante
and
volver al
to
contrato
start
social que hubo
a
en Europa en
dialogue.
los llamados estados del
Maybe we
bienestar,
should
porque no sé
retake
si esos
this
estados del
social
bienestar
debate
y ese
on the
contrato
welfare
se
states
construyeron
that
para
started
el
in Europe.
privilegio y el
All
aseguramiento de
those
unos
welfare
pocos,
states
de
were
varones hombres
built
que trabajaban
for the
en el
privilege
mercado
of a
laboral, que
few
llegaron
people.
a un contrato
There
con
was
las
a
élites
labor system established,
político-económicas
and the
europeas,
contract
o
was
tenemos que
signed
avanzar hacia nuevos contratos
to serve
sociales que pongan en el
an
centro
elite.
otro tipo
So
de
we need
economía,
to establish
otro tipo
different
de
contracts
que pongan en el
which
centro los sistemas de cuidado, pero que
focus
también
on
reviertan
the
la privatización de
people,
la salud.
change the
¿Cuántas de
economy,
nosotras y nosotros
abolish the
estrategias de resistencia individuales
privatization of
estamos
health,
enviando hoy a nuestras hijas y
and
hijos
take
a los
into account the
colegios
values of
concertados?
all the people
¿Cuántas de
within the
nosotros por
resistance?
aquello de
How
la
many
segregación
from our group
educativa para que
are
nuestras hijas y nuestros hijos tengan las
bringing
oportunidades que otras
our
personas,
children
ciudadanos y
to
ciudadanas de este país, que
schools
por
which are not
su
public,
color de
which
piel, su
receive
origen nacional,
support from
étnico,
public
religioso o
funds?
pertenencia a una minoría
And how many
étnica como la de
people
las
from
gitanas y los gitanos
ethnical,
no van a
religion
tener el mismo sistema
minorities
educativo y la misma educación
will
de
not be
calidad, el derecho
able
a la
to
educación,
access the same
porque así lo
education, the
establecen las
same
leyes y porque así
training, because
socialmente tomamos decisiones
laws
que
allow
contribuyen al
that, and because
mantenimiento
we
de
have
este modelo.
adopted
Hablo de
decisions to
sanidad, seguros
support this model.
médicos, hablo de
If we
educación,
deal with health,
concierto,
it's
hablo de muchas de las
we have to
estrategias
deal to the system and the
jurídico-normativas y
medical system.
políticas que sostienen este
Regarding
modelo de
education, we have to
acaparación por desposesión.
transform
Creo que
this
hablar
model
de este
of
enfoque feminista y decolonial para una transición ecológica
holding
es poner en el
by
centro la
depriving
sabiduría
the rest of the
milenaria
people.
de la inmensa mayoría
And
de
to
la,
do all of
de la
this, we
humanidad,
should
de esa
take
humanidad y de esas
all the
sociedades
wisdom
que
in
aquí,
our
en este pequeñito lugar del
global
mundo y en este concreto
humanity
tiempo,
that
seguimos sin ser capaces
is among us
de
for
cerrar la
centuries.
boca y
And you
dejar
see
de
it
pensar que
to
nosotras y nosotros sabemos
undertake a
esta
transformation,
Europa
because we
cristiana
are not
blanca
able
occidental,
to close
cómo
mouths
gestionar
to
los ecosistemas,
the
cómo gestionar la naturaleza y la vida,
to the
que
speak
este sistema de
persons
privilegio lo ha puesto al
who
servicio del ánimo de
defend
lucro y la
this privilege
acumulación del
system
privilegio,
based on the
y
hoarding of
seguir
privilege
pensando en un
and
epistemicidio brutal,
on those who
que
keep
no hay un enorme
thinking
repositorio de formas de
on
hacer y
this
saber,
model without
desde
taking into
filosofías
account the
milenarias
different
en África,
forms
en Asia, en los
existing
pueblos
from the
indígenas y las
millenary
naciones
wise
en América, que
wisdom
llevan toda la vida
wisdomness
desde que
that
la
can
humanidad
be used
está
from
aquí,
all the millenary knowledge from Asia, from
articulando
Africa, from
redes de
all over the
interdependencia,
world,
solidaridad
and that
y
could be
ayuda
used to
con otros seres
construct those interrelated networks to put into contact the different human beings, the ecosystems, and the planet. We have enough knowledge, enough wisdom, and enough tools to keep doing what we do, but we think that only we know what needs to be done. So let's stop supporting this idea and this religion of techno-knowledge, and let's stop thinking that scientific knowledge of the Western world is enough to have a more ecological way of life and a more efficient economy. We need to close the mouth, and I insist, close the mouth of all of us who are responsible of supporting this socio-political structure, and those of us who have kept this system, and we need to start listening to all those women and men who have resisted to capitalism, and stop thinking of transitions to social models which are fairer, instead of recovering the wisdom and the tools of the biggest part of the humanity which is not heard, and start signing contracts with those people, stopping contracts with the powers of this ancient system. Thanks a lot.
Tengo otras 3 preguntas, si sois breves, a ver si nos da tiempo plantearlas. Eva, aquí hemos hablado de que se están impulsando directivas europeas de debida diligencia y contra la violencia de género y la violencia doméstica. La revisión también del tercer plan de acción de la UE sobre igualdad de género y empoderamiento de las mujeres en acción exterior 2021-2025 o el reglamento de la inteligencia artificial. Y como hemos hablado mucho de la importancia de esta cohesión entre las políticas domésticas y acción exterior, ¿cómo crees que se trasladan todas estas normativas a la relación de la
I wanted to know how do all of these regulations translate into the US relation with the rest of the world?
Voy a ser breve, sí.
Yeah, I will try to do it short. The 3 ideas you have just mentioned have been adopted in Spain by different competent departments regarding artificial intelligence, gender, and due diligence are 3 areas in which the European regulations and laws are being followed, and we are being coherent with regulations in Europe, of course. But from our ministry, we are not competent on these regulations, but of course, we want these 3 matters to be dealt with coherence with the international and the domestic departments. But that's all I can say regarding this.
Una de las características de esta presidencia es que es la última completa antes del cambio de ciclo institucional europeo, por lo que la Coordinadora también pide que se cierren numerosos proyectos legislativos. Y uno de ellos es la tramitación de la adopción del Pacto Europeo de Migración y Asilo. Así que te quería preguntar cómo debe ser el enfoque de este pacto para que sea garante de
what should be the focus of this pact so that it guarantees the rights of all migrants and asylum seekers, especially for women, children, and young people? I'm sorry, we should say no to this pact. If we are able to start building other speeches, other policies, other migration policies for the new cycle of the presidency, maybe we will be able to accept that we live in an apartheid in Europe, in which we keep a part of the population who provide care, which hold the life of most of the population in Europe, and who support and hold agriculture and the source of food in all of Europe, and they are an apartheid. We should start recognizing that they all need the same rights, that they are all citizens of Europe, and it's not only an issue of reinforcing the legal mechanisms and legal obligations of the European Union regarding asylum. It's not only about changing the policies, the channels of the migration flux. It's not only about changing the legal books in which the regulations of the southern border are based. It's about taking into account other considerations. If the pact is a policy of minimum, we should say no to it because it's about giving continuity to this structure in which labor exploitation, people dealing with people is legal, and racism is accepted. How many resistance projects are there who have taken part in this government to get the initiative approved, an initiative that has been prepared by thousands of women and men who support human rights, and we have to call them like this. And it's a coincidence that their initiative is not going to be supported. In Europe, it's completely the same. Thanks a lot,
Eva, uno de los primeros hitos de este semestre, y lo hemos repetido en varias ocasiones a lo largo de la mañana, es el primer examen voluntario de la Unión Europea sobre de la Agenda 2030. Brevemente, no sé si nos podrías dar unas pinceladas de cuáles son los principales hallazgos de este primer examen, si la Unión Europea está avanzando en su cumplimiento.
Is the European Union making progress on the accomplishment of the agenda?
Sí. Como digo, se presenta por primera vez
As I said, it's the first time that this voluntary review is conducted. It's a big success because it's the first organizational institution presenting a voluntary review. It's true that 8 years have gone by and it's already time to do this analysis. From our perspective, this voluntary review is a good exercise which will allow coordinating different members, taking into account statistics, and for us, it's true that this review has been very much focused in the EU. The different members haven't been asked about the statistical report. It's true that it's been drafted from a very optimistic approach. It lacks some autocriticism, but it is true that it provides a good international view which aligns with the working lines of Spain when providing a domestic and an international view altogether. And we think that it lacks the view of the challenges regarding the future, what needs to be done. We all like this review. We think it's positive in general, and we know that it's going to be presented on one side a domestic review and then the international review with the commissaire presiding it. The Spanish presidency will have a role in that act, but it's true that we lack this auto-criticism and this challenging view towards the future. It is true that it's structured, aligned with the 2030 agenda. And we have to take into account that the reality of Europe is not being such as it was thought when the agenda was drafted. And we are concentrating on this agenda anyway, so it was a big work to do this review. I think it's anyway a good work. Lots of statistic data have been analyzed from the Statistic Bureau, and it's a very positive act, but we like that criticism. There will be a short presentation, maybe too short. I don't know if everybody will have a moment to take the floor, but the civil society has been invited, which is very positive. For all these months, we've tried to deal with the preparation of this act, and it was not clear, but little by little we are getting ready, and we have drafted that domestic vision and that international vision, and then we have got all the civil society and the private sector included. In order to conclude, Carlos, I wanted to mention something that has been very much highlighted by the Spanish platform, and it's the citizen participation. When we speak of democracy in this situation, we are attending to the action of authoritarian governments in Latin America regarding lots of governments contrary to the values of equality, freedom, and participation. And also in Europe, there are lots of parties which are contrary to these values. So I have a couple of questions, and we'll close this roundtable and we'll open the floor for the public to participate. So, Carlos, do we in Europe look at what is happening in the member states, or do we only point out this lack of rights to the outside world? And second, how do we protect citizen participation and civic space?
No, menos de 5 minutos.
5 minutes, right? Well, no, less than 5 minutes.
Sí, bueno, muchas gracias.
Well, thank you very much. I think that the 2030 agenda that we're talking about, it's a framework, and it's a framework that establishes a continuum between the public politics. It dilutes these frontiers between the exterior and the interior. So, of course, we need to look at the members, the state members. We need to see the closing of spaces and the vulnerability of rights in the states that are members. And we have to look at this. We do have shared challenges, climate change, etc., but also, as we said at the beginning, what the member states do affects the neighbors or whoever we share political agendas. The tornadoes that we were talking about happen in politics a lot of times in politics developed in the state members. So again, we need to talk about a politics that's critical, where we can maybe raise our gaze and talk about global politics, environment, strengthen democracy, also participation of the civic society. And not only the gaze, it's important, but also the governing of these agencies. There's not enough structures for it to be a global balance related with the public, and the North States are only represented in some global structures. But the ones suffering from all these global pains, I'm going to talk about the second side, about how to strengthen the civil society. To start with, there's an urgency. The civic space is being closed in a lot of countries in the world. We talked about Ukraine, of course, but in some countries in Europe as well. So if we talk about numbers, a lot of people that are the advocates, of the right advocates, are being vulnerated just because they're defending rights of these spaces. Behind these people, there's a lot of women. And there's lives, of course, but there's also fights that are debilitated with this orchestrated attempt to reduce this fight for the rights, for the territories, and for social justice. So I think it's something that needs to be faced. It's really important. We think there has to be a vibrant space for civic society. This is really important. We need to promote and strengthen this space. We have to be governing critically the companies, the government, the social organizations, to strengthen democracy and fight against these authoritarian regimes that we have seen in some regions in the world, including the European Union. I think that we have to create spaces for participation for civil society. And when we talk about new agendas in Latin America, we have to open these spaces for these social civic societies with their voices and their diversity. And the Committee for Health and Development needs to allow a better space for civic society in Latin America, but in the South, and not just for these political agendas, also groups of women, racialized groups, they are suffering this repression in bureaucratic situations that is really crowding their political agendas. Before closing, I would like to say that we need to recognize the program of democracy of the Spanish cooperation. We need to talk about this democracy setting that needs to strengthen the civic space with advocates. And it's something that needs to be consolidated, clarified. The structure needs to be clarified. We need to have resources to keep having this strategic position in the Spanish society. To finish what we have been talking about, this political consistency, this is not just a patch or some finishing product. We need to talk about it's our way of conceiving politics, the relationship, international relationships. And in the end, what I was saying too, to change the gaze, to change the way of looking at things, and in a way, analyze this tornado effect that we were talking about at the beginning, to turn it into something positive in this thing that is at hand. Thank you, Carlos. Now we are going to pass the mic to Macarena Céspedes. She's the Vice President of the Plataforma de Infancia. We are also going to hear from Ricardo Magán, Director of Systemic Strategy of Greenpeace Spain. We also have Paquita Sauquillo. She is the communication spokesperson of the Third Sector Platform. And we are going to hear about other organizations and what they are proposing for this consistency of politics from their platforms or agencies.
La plataforma de infancia, como sabéis, trabaja desde España, trabaja por supuesto en el contexto europeo y es cierto que trabajamos y tenemos un grupo entre Coordinadora y Plataforma de Infancia para poner también a la infancia
Plataforma de Infancia. Here we are trying to implement this
cooperation
politics. In the framework of the collaboration with Europe, we're trying to work in 4 different aspects. The first one is having participation of childhood. We have a process with kids, children and teenagers from the European Union. And we're going to have this in Spain at the end of September in Alcalá de Henares. And it's going to be a meeting of these children, and we'll talk about this politics on the European Union. We are also working with all the European rights for children. It's really very important. We have 6 objectives, and they are related to end poverty in the European context, security and education for the first childhood, and trying to have the kids in this protection system. There's going to be an event on November 3rd. We are also working so that we have a parallel meeting with civil society where we are going to focus in childhood. So it's going to establish this dialogues between administrations or the European administration, Spanish and from the state members. The third point is also in the agenda that you have mentioned in the section is protection from sexual abuse. It has a very important link with the digital world and everything that happens online. We are working internally in the European Union to prevent sexual abuse. We're talking with Connect Pack and Children Europe, and with that and the work groups in these ministries of Interior and Justice. They have a really important role in this topic. We are also trying to have that childhood has a very important role in the summit, in the European summit here and in the Caribbean, especially on the 14th, that where we talk is it's Youth Day, and something that we have been talking in the Youth Council in Spain, and we are trying to launch this platform in Latin America. In all these childhood topics. We have a lot of things. We want to collaborate, work together, and generate politics at a domestic level and at a European and global level that focus that at the core have people, and in our case, as we always say, childhood, because it's overrepresented in all the dramas in the world. When we talk about poverty, refugees, wars, when we talk about all these things, the very important role and negative, unfortunately, is childhood. So thank you very much. It's my turn, no? Well, I'm going to talk about the platform in this sector, the communication sector, but I want to talk in the name of all the different platforms. In this sector, we've been working here for 10 years. We have 28,000 entities. We have childhood platform. We have Caritas. I'm not going to name them all because you already know them, but we have been working and talking about the role that we we want Spain to have, because it's really important. And what we want is that in this Spanish presidency, we want them to talk about all the social topics and center in the situations and problems that exist in Europe and, of course, in our country, social inclusion, immigration, etc. I'm going to do this fast because you have talked at this table and previously in things that are really important, and Plataforma is also doing. But our fundamental statements are that during the presidency, we need to value the social letter European, and needs to be improved. We think that we need also to launch the creation of a European directive about minimum salaries to eliminate poverty. For immigration politics, I mean, we've done a lot of things, but Europe is living a very complicated situation, and we think that we need to implement asylum, social cohesion, and gestion of immigration. It's just in the whole of Europe. Because the problem exists in the whole of Europe, not just here. So, in relation with cooperation, the European Union needs to improve the quality and quantity of help used for immigration, and it needs to help sustainable development. We also need to establish housing as a fundamental right, not only in Spain, but also in Europe. Housing is a human right, and we need a European regulation. I'm talking about youth and childhood. From Plataforma de la Infancia, she already talked about that, but everything that she said about protection, childhood rights, we also give a lot of importance to civic rights. So we need to launch the role of the European society and include social participation and volunteers to help to solve these problems. And not just governments, there has to be a social dialogue. And here in Spain, in the administration, we're trying to have a dialogue with the social society. In terms of disabilities, we need something for the year 2021-2030. We have a European card for disabilities. And this needs to be launched and implemented within the European strategy for disability and be included in the social economy. Concluding, this presidency is very important. We hope that it really helps and it really reaches all our goals. And we want a coordinated response for all these social actions for right now. We want a Europe that's fair and sustainable. And from these platforms, we're going to have an event with Ministerio de Sociales and all the platforms, and we're doing this on July 12th. We're going to talk about all these topics and talk about how important civic dialogue is for us. Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting us. We think that the Spanish platform has had a really good response. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Ada, for the presentation. I'm Ricardo from Greenpeace, and thank you for promoting this event. We think it's really valuable and pertinent. Talking about these agencies that have been instigators, Greenpeace has a lot of proposals that are really well known, but I want to do a reflection and maybe a question. This thought is related with this event, is with this Europe and this consistent politics and having people at the core. But I think this is kind of like a fake dichotomy. We have people on one side and politics on another side. So we have to be coherent and good to the planet. So of course, Spanish presidency needs to face these politics that some of them are related with our agenda. So like energy politics, for example, transition, talking about fossil fuels. They need to talk directly to defend the planet. And there's a lot of things on the table, and it's not very well known that need to do with our health and with our lives at the core. For example, Europe directive with air quality. This is something that it might sound that it's something temporary, but it's really affecting a lot of areas, especially also to rural areas. It affects a lot of cities in Europe. We need to improve this air quality, but there's other laws that are very relevant, and these need to be implemented, like a law for nature and reestablishing nature. These politics have been in the dialogue, but this law not only defends ecosystem, not only talks about the health of our environment, it talks about biodiversity, but it also talks about the use of the soil, how we are facing things or like these tools, these rights. If this law is not approved, something needs to happen. It's just not about trees and about the birds and about the air. It also affects our socioeconomical settings. It also affects the earth. We're going to be talking about our socioeconomic model, how we want to solve this, and also how it affects food. I'm going to give you an example pretty fast. Water, something that is we are a country that has a really bad drought. We don't use water really well. So, for example, we having problems with strawberry because we are not using water really well. And there's also been all this problem with issues with Doñana. So this is water, of course, is not a problem just in Spain. It's also a problem, a challenge in the European setting. We need to use as a tool this social discourse needs to be implemented. We also need to talk about the NGOs, and we also have to include, we have included them last minute, people that talk about ecology. So this social presidency, it's really necessary, and it also has to have an ecological action. Otherwise, there's not going to be any actions. And I have a question as well.
A mí me chivan por el pinganillo que ya no tenemos tiempo, pero vamos a tener un cóctel al final de la jornada, vamos a poder tomarnos un café.
We can have some coffee. We can have some questions. I'm sorry about those joining us online, that they cannot join us on this wonderful coffee. We are going to keep going to closure. I invite you to stay. I know that you want to just leave. I'm going to invite Anton Leis. He is a member of the Collaboration and Development. Anton, if you want to do the closing of this event. Well, thank you. I know you talked about coffee. People that are following us from home, they can have this coffee, but I'm going to be brief because I don't want to annoy. You can have your cocktail, your coffee, but our role here in the international cooperation, I think that our document is really important to have these statements. We thank you. Thank you for the invitation. But we also want to talk about the document We think it's really well written. I mean, you can have your own opinions. I don't agree with everything, but we have really valuable proposals. But I think that listening and the dialogue, not just with the organizations, with people that we work with here in Madrid, we are present in Latin America, in Africa, in the Middle East, doing our job. Our job and cooperation is not just talking, we also have to listen. We have been doing this for a long time, doing it better or worse, hopefully better, but the commitment is always has been listening to our members, people that live there, that is. I only have three messages. The first one, in the context of this presidency, is this, in this context of crisis, some data of this 140 goals, only 12% are in the right pace. 30% has not advanced, and the rest has done a little bit. Some of them even have gone backwards from 2015. We have some millions of people are going to be living under poverty, and just a third of the countries are going to reach the goal of not having this poverty thresholds. The way things are going, it's going to take us 246 years, 286, to close gender gaps. That's not good. This is clear. There's a crisis in the world, of course, but there's also Europe, of course. It's not the answer to all of these problems, but Europe can be part of the solution. We are the first provider, European in the world, of helping for development. We are giving, we're helping financially to help solve some of the problems of the world. We're trying not to oppose agendas. These crises are opposed. They are also parallel. We have this model of growing. It has to do with how we spread the different tasks among different people. But also, of course, we have this consistency in the politics, but we also need to be coherent with other things. Second, we have this different paradigm of collaboration. I'm trying not to be fraternizing, but it's not convenient. But it's also impossible to keep it this way. We need to be logical. We need to talk about shared problems and try to reach a response altogether, all of us, cooperation agencies doing our role, but also society. We need to talk with the society that we work with. It needs to be green and digital, but also social. I mean, people in the center, of course, and not just ecology. And it's really hard to have a fair transition. We're trying to help the ones that are the most exposed. We also need to give opportunity and a new gaze to cooperation. We are, of course, talking about a crisis of democracy. There's democracy being questioned here and all around. It's something that we need to work with. I think we can lead this. In this document, you talk about society, and of course, in this platform of NGOs are very ambitious, but we can talk about how. One key alliance. We all need to work together, European Union, Spain, private sector, public sector. We need to work together with the members and with society. Second idea is the idea in the title in this conference that I think it's really good. This is not just solidarity, it's an exercise on responsibility against the crisis that we have to fight against. We are very solidary, we know that. We are very solidary, we always help. We have shown this, but Spain has assuming the responsibility. So Europe needs to meet the responsibilities. And we are an investment for a more sustainable world, but we don't have to solve others' problems. We need to solve common problems, immigration, climate change, issues of gender. Really, we don't want to be fraternizing, and we don't have to have vertical discourses. We need to work together. And about how? I was talking about alliance. Second is dialogue. Dialogue has presided the reform process in all these societies of cooperation and defining the law as well. We are opening a pause right now in the political setting. We're going to see where Spain's taking us, but this dialogue process in the collaboration is going to inspire the presidency because we're talking about projects and responsibility of Spain and Europe in the world, and for that, we need to have the support of the citizens and the cooperation. So, of course, we count on you, and thank you so much for having us and for inviting us.
Y ahora le voy a pedir que suba a Olga Colanje. Ella es Calonge, muy mal. No supero la prueba de castellano. Vicepresidenta primera de la Junta de Gobierno de la Coordinadora y directora de la Fundación Agra. Perdóname.
Nada, estás perdonadísima. Muchas gracias a todos y a todas por
Thanks a lot
esta mañana aquí.
for participating this morning in this session. Thanks to the table for the thoughts that have been shared. If I would have to sum up what has been done in a sole sentence, it will be complicated, but I will take only one idea. I'll try to do it the best possible. There were people talking about deep change. Some people talk about the global challenges. I've heard that the economic indicators, economic data should not guide our agenda, and I like that. During the following months, in the Spanish platform, we've been saying that we have to change our approach. If we don't change our approach, we won't be changing the world. This morning, we've said that the people in the world should be in the center. And now we have the opportunity, we have the presidency of the European Union, and as a country, we need a Europe which is more fair, which is more democratic, which guarantees human rights for all people in the world and for them in the center. And I will stop here. It's not an easy job, but I think we should add a few things more. This should be the idea motivating the work in the presidency in the following months. I will also mention the different parties mentioned, the party diesel mentioned, and what we want all of us is to put the people in the center. We've talked about the agenda and the visibility of the agenda. I was worried to hear that in Europe, the Agenda 2030 is not in the center. However, the United Nations consider us as a partner and they trust us. So we need to place the Agenda 2030 where it should have been. We've been talking about policies, we've been talking about coherence. Some like this term more than others, but what is important is to take into account that we need interconnection and we need coherence. We've mentioned that it's an opportunity to link Europe with America and Latin America. We've said that we need to normalize the relationships between the European Union and Latin America and the Caribbean. I was worried to hear that we need to normalize. We have to take into account that we will have a framework during the summit to give a push to this relationship, but this is something that should be bi-directional and all the agents should be participating. We've mentioned mentioned that this is an asymmetrical relationship, and we should work for this relationship to stop being asymmetric. We are really worried about what's happening in Latin America and the stop of deep progress in that part of the planet, as civil society will be there to defend free places, free spaces where we can express our ideas with safety. We've also mentioned that it's urgent to have a feminist anti-colonial approach. I've heard the intervention of our colleague talking about human rights and decolonization. We need an Europe to take this idea as a priority. Life, cares. We've mentioned that a few times this morning. The rights of women and girls should be at the center, and we have to take an approach in which we have an equal distribution, an equal redistribution. We have to keep talking about rights, and I really like hearing to recover the wisdom of humanity. And this morning we've also mentioned that this presidency is the opportunity to retake the European Pact for Migration and Asylum. We've said that it's an opportunity for Spain to approach negotiations in another way. Here we believe in that idea, always having as a priority that people are at the center of this pact for migration and asylum. We need to promote rights and actions, and we have to provide safe ways. All are citizens, all of us, we are citizens, and we can never condition development to any other factor. And to finish my speech, which has already been too long, it's urgent to protect spaces and to reinforce civil society. We've listened to some figures. There are lots of women dying for defending their rights. It's not only that they die, but they suffer repression because of their vindication. So we need to generate spaces for us to discuss dialogue and defend our ideas in a safe framework. And every time we talk on civil society spaces and participation, we always say that we need to integrate this south of the world. It's a moment to change our approach, change our look, and only if we change our look, we will change the world. Thanks a lot.
Muchísimas gracias, Anton. Gracias, Olga. Gracias,
thanks a lot,
Carlos.
Thanks, Olga. Thanks,
gracias a todas las personas que nos han acompañado esta mañana, las que estáis aquí en la sala, también los que nos han seguido online por streaming. Llegamos así al final de este acto de presentación de las propuestas para la presidencia española del Consejo de la Unión Europea. ¿Cómo se nota que ya queremos ese café? Nada, sí,
we are all begging for
creo
a
que
coffee
quedan
now.
claros todos los retos, pero también las oportunidades que hay de cara a la
clear that
presidencia
there are
española
many
del Consejo de la
challenges,
Unión
but also
Europea.
many
Os
opportunities
invito
ahead
a
of the
que
Spanish
aprovechemos
presidency of the
esos
EU
minutos
Council.
de cóctel
I
para poder
invite
intercambiar y
you
para que
to
podáis
take
plantear
advantage
las
of
preguntas que
this
nos han podido
cocktail
hacer.
or coffee
Muchas gracias a la
to
coordinadora
discuss
y
on
nada,
those
pues damos
matters
por
that could not be
finalizado
put
el evento.
onto the table. And thanks a lot. And this puts an end to this event.